All right. Welcome to First Draft. I'm Mary Chris Escobar. Things look a little bit different tonight. You're used to seeing Julia Kelly. So also thank you for waiting for about 5 minutes for us to get started. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. We have a lot of firsts tonight. We have Lindsay Emery joining us for the first time, and Alexis Ann is on a new computer, and I'm hosting for the first time. So all kinds of firsts on First Draft tonight. Our topic for the night is NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. But before we dive into that, I will let everybody kind of go around the room and introduce themselves. So I'll start with Alexis Ann.
Hi, I'm Alexis Ann. I write contemporary and erotic romances, and you can find me at alexisannbooks.com.
Excellent. And Lindsay Emery is joining us tonight. I'll let her introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Emery, and I'm writing contemporary romance, and you can find me at lindsay.emery.com.
Awesome. And as I mentioned, I'm Mary Chris Escobar. I write women's fiction, and you can find me at marychrisescobar.com. I am playing the role of host tonight because I actually have never done National Novel Writing Month before, so I'm excited to learn about that from these two ladies and hear what inspiring words they have for you all. So I'm just going to kind of sit back and ask a few questions and get the discussion going. I thought to start off, just in case anybody watching is not familiar with National Novel Writing Month and what that is, which we'll probably be calling it NaNo or NaNoWriMo, which is sort of the abbreviation for it. Alexis, would you mind just kind of giving us an overview of what National Novel Writing Month is?
Well, the acronym is NaNoWriMo, and for a while I thought it was all about November, but apparently they do this a couple times a year. Just an FYI, if anybody didn't decide to start at the beginning of November, you do have other chances throughout the year. But basically it is writing a novel in a month, 50,000 words, 1 month. Just do whatever you can to get a novel down for the first time, because what is usually the biggest barrier to becoming a writer is finishing a novel. And so NaNoWriMo kind of provides that motivation, support system, and network to put down, 1,640 something words a day.
1657?
I think that's right. To get to 50,000 words by the end of the month. And if you can accomplish that, then you win.
Awesome. So Lindsay, I will throw it over to you. How many times have you participated in NaNoWriMo? And what made you decide to do it for the first time?
I have, well, this will be my 4th time. So I've done it 2 times in November, and I have done the Camp Nano, it's called Camp NaNoWriMo, and I was trying to remember, I didn't pull it back up, if that's during the summer or the spring. It was a different time of year, so that was actually the only one I haven't finished. I thought I would be more successful not in November, but there's something about the energy in November that I don't know, really motivates me. And how did I get started? I don't know. I've been trying to remember that, and I think it was just kind of, I was beginning to write and starting to talk to other writers on the internet, and I'd never heard of it before, and it kept coming up, and it was one of those things where I thought, well, I really would like to write a book, and this is the month to do it, I guess. So I just started it, and yeah, finished. I've won the 2 in November and didn't win the camp one. So.
So the first book that you wrote was a Nano book, it sounds like?
Yeah, the first book I wrote, and then the sequel to that one, and so neither of those are ever going to get published. But I finished them. You know, I could say, I have this book, I'm going to send it to agents, I'm going to start down that path, and I probably wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't been for that.
Very cool. Excellent. Alexis, how about you? How many times have you participated, and kind of what inspired you to participate for the first time?
I think I might be Lindsay's opposite, because I have never won NaNoWriMo. But I'm very enthusiastic about the process. I participated for the first time last year. I've only done it once. This is my 2nd year. But I first heard about it because I had done So You Think You Can Write. And I joined Twitter because of that, and and because I was on Twitter, I was connected to all of these writers and wannabe writers for the first time in my life. And when November rolled around, all of them started saying that they were doing NaNoWriMo. And I had no idea what that was. And so I started paying attention to what it was. And I didn't decide to join it that year because I had just finished writing a novel for So You Think You Can Write. And I didn't have the energy to tackle yet another novel that was never going to see the light of day 2 months in a row. But I paid attention that year. I joined and cheered and watched everyone do it, and I got to kind of learn by osmosis what NaNoWriMo was, so that the next year I was able to join and make my attempt at finishing a novel. So I feel much better about this year.
We have high hopes. So you both mentioned the community and the support. So can you talk a little bit about that? I'll kind of throw that out to whoever wants to take it. But I think that's a big part of it. And again, you both mentioned it. So if you can just talk a little bit more, one, about how you get connected with that community, and then what the support is like.
I would say this is one of the big selling points of Nano for me, is the community on and off the site. If you've never been there before, the site does host a lot of forums and I don't know if they're called forums or message boards, with tons of different topics. And I have availed myself of those even outside of, because they keep them open all year round, so you can go back and go look at them. And I'm sorry, I have 2 dogs in here. They're roaming around.
Oh, that's so cute.
I'll show y'all later if they are still around. Anyway, so I kind of got involved with some of those boards during Nano, and that's great feedback to have. I think going back to the camp one that I didn't finish, those boards were not as active at that time, and I have thought that maybe that's why I didn't have the get up and go to finish that, and the project was not finishable apparently. Yeah, so those kinds of things really keep you going, and I love. But now that I'm on Twitter more, I love the word sprints and the hashtags on there too. Yeah, the hashtags, NaNoWriMo or am writing NaNoWriMo, and so if you plug those in, you'll get to find lots of other people doing it with you.
Yeah, and the website is it National Novel Writing Month, or is it, this is how ignorant I am about NaNoWriMo, is the website like NaNoWriMo.org? Okay, yeah. And I'm sure, if you're watching and you want to connect with that, if you just Google National Novel Writing Month, I'm sure all of these resources will come up for you. Yeah. Alexis, do you want to talk a little bit about like the support and how that helps? Yeah.
I think, not having been a writer and then coming into the writing community, that has been one of the biggest eye-opening things for me. Is there is a community, there are support networks, and NaNoWriMo does a really good job with creating a support network. One of the cool things is that when you join Nano, even if you're not going to do November, you can join Nano and you can get connected with a local chapter. Like my local chapter is going to be writing around the world because we're in Orlando, we're Central Florida, so they're going to Epcot. Epcot has the World Showcase. Cool. They're going to write their way around the World Showcase.
Fun.
It's really cool. I probably won't go to it, but it's really exciting. But you have the opportunity to connect with people both online that you may never meet in person, or to join a local chapter and to go sit down and talk with other writers, people who are struggling, people who are very successful. You have no idea who you're going to meet at the local level. There's also, like Lindsay said, hashtags that you can follow, writing sprints that you can do. It's a very community-based world, and that's really cool.
Definitely. I think you both make a really good point, especially if you're new to writing. It's a really large group of people participating in this, so it's a really natural way, I think, to find other writers and to connect, because you're sort of all in this thing together, and it's a big thing, right? It's 50,000 words in a month. That's huge. So definitely a shared experience and a really good, either through the local events or if you're just, on Twitter and following the hashtags. I think it's got to be a good way to connect with other writers if that's something that you haven't been able to do or you're just brand new to writing. So that sounds like probably, I agree with both of you, that's probably one of the biggest parts of it is that connection. Even though I've never done it, you're kind of inspiring me to want to do it. So you both touched on this. Lindsay, you said you finished, of the 4 times you've done it, you finished 3 of the projects, which we've referred to that as you won NaNoWriMo, but so you finished the 50,000 words 3 of the 4 times?
Well, no, not yet, because this is the 4th time. Right.
So two of the 3. 2 of the 3.
2 of the 3, yeah.
Excellent. And you did go on to edit those books and like finish them up, or?
Yeah. For the first book you ever write.
No, right. Yeah.
And you edit it to the best of your ability. And hold on, this is my dog here, who's apparently needing a lot of attention. I don't know what it looks like if it looks weird if my hand's moving below the camera.
We are romance writers.
That's right.
I like you guys. Yeah, so I did edit it, and again, I queried it, sent it out there. Not a whole lot of luck with that one, but everyone's got their first, and you never know. Someday in the future, someone might want a satirical vampire novel. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Whole new side of Lindsay here.
So to answer your question, I'm sorry.
No, absolutely, you did. Yeah, I'm always wondering, like, when you get those 50,000 words out, what is it like when you go back and read that draft? I mean,
sometimes it's amazing. Well, because you get in the zone, and that's why I always try and tell people is that when you're just letting it flow, I would go back and I would read stuff, and I'm like, where did that come from? It was pulled somewhere, and it had a great rhythm, and crazy ideas came out of my head, and I'm not saying the whole thing was like that, obviously, but there were sections that I didn't even remember, which could be good or could be bad. But I find that in other times, now that I've written 5 more novels since, is that sometimes the times when you're in the flow is when really cool stuff happens. And anybody out there who's doing NaNoWriMo and is completely intimidated at the thought of having to choose 50,000 words, I would say, sometimes the words choose you, and just open up the floodgates and see what comes out. That Nano is just the time for you to experiment and play and let it go.
Yeah, definitely. I like that a lot. I think that idea of the words choosing you, and when you can't go back and revise, right? I mean, because you're on this deadline and you're trying to get the words done, and so I would imagine it would surprise you when you go back, because you're not going back every day and reading it. It kind of breaks that cycle, definitely.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I was going to say that can be really good for the writers who are very insecure, who rethink everything that they're doing and want to go back and constantly edit. Nano pushes you to just put the words down and see where you can go with it instead of getting caught up in that cycle.
One thing I was going to bring up is, so a couple of the accounts on Twitter, I think called Nano Word Sprints, at Nano Word Sprints, but they kind of foster word sprints 24 hours a day. They have someone going, and a lot of times they'll put out prompts. And
cool.
I haven't done any yet, but I've followed them on Twitter, so I've seen them throughout the day, and it's like, put a sauna in, put a this in, and you can choose whether or not you want to put a turkey leg into your story or not, but you don't know what that's going to inspire. In fact, there's a thing, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but the shovel of death.
No.
Alexis,
I'm unfamiliar.
have you heard about this?
No.
Okay. I'm not really sure when it started in Nano history, And it might have started off as a prompt. They said, you have to kill someone with a shovel.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So my first nano, I heard about this and I thought, well, that's dumb. I would never kill someone with a shovel. And but it kind of went to the back of my head. And then I'm writing a story, and the heroine and her best friend go to a tattoo parlor, and they're getting into a conversation about all the tattoos on the wall. And I have this conversation about, oh, hey, what's that tattoo? Oh, it's a tattoo of a shovel and a skull. And why is that? It's because it all came out of me, and I'm thinking that's a great example of, you hear a prompt or something, and it comes out in your story in different ways, and it could really work. It could be crazy, but let's see where it goes.
Definitely. And that's, I think, part of that connection too. If there's this theme that everybody is like trying to use a word or trying to connect with it. I mean, Alexis and Julia and I talk about that as critique partners. There's little things we know if we put into our books, it's going to make one of the other people laugh. Like Julia hates winking. Yeah, like winking. And so it's like this shared experience and this connection, which is pretty cool. So if you pick up a book and find a shovel of death, it was probably
a NaNo
novel. Yeah, it's really cool.
It's like Easter eggs.
Exactly. It's like little inside tricks. It's a lot of fun.
I just wanted to note real quick that Julia is jealous that we're making sex jokes and there's a dog.
I know.
Julia, there's actually 2 dogs. Just one's being good and laying on the floor.
Super cute. What is the dog's name?
I have Murphy and Max.
Nice. Yes. Murphy and Max.
I
think these are our first animals in the
I think
first
so.
chat. Very cool. Yeah. What was? Oh, okay. Sorry, I was distracted by the sounds. So, Alexis, did you have anything about what it's like to go back and pick up that story after you write it during this kind of 50,000 word month-long sprint? What is it like when you go back into it to take a look? Because I think which one of your novels was a NaNo novel last year? Is it
The Unspoken Game?
Oh, okay.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I just confused things. It was the Butterfly Rebellion. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
Okay. So in general, I'm a fast writer, and I thought 50,000 words would be no issue, but I tried to force a book because I thought it would be a great opportunity to work on a book that I've been wanting to work on, and it was not ready to be written, apparently, and it went very badly. For me, I was in the wrong point of view. I think I was using the wrong everything. And so the book didn't work. I didn't finish NaNo because I got to about 40,000 words and was looking at it like, what did I just do? But that was actually an excellent learning experience for me, especially going back through it and really taking it apart and picking it apart and trying to figure out what it was about this poor book that I loved so passionately and had such interesting characters and a great world. It was sci-fi, by the way. And it just wasn't working, even though I had so much passion for the story. And I had switched from first person to third person, and for this story, I think it was a massive mistake. So it was a very interesting learning experience to see where I was trying to go with something, because intellectually I thought it would be a really good idea, but it didn't follow with what the story needed. And so I failed miserably at that. It was a terrible manuscript, and I learned a lot.
And you learned it.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. Because the book I didn't finish, it was exactly the same thing. I was writing it in third person, and the whole time, I think I was writing it in third person because I wanted to have a romance subplot, and I read that if you have romance, it has to be in third person. So I was just forcing it, and I think I got to about 40,000 words and thought, I can't do this anymore. It was horrible. It's painful.
It's so painful when it's not working, and you can feel how wooden it is, and that it's just, oh my god, it's so bad. Like, it's a caricature of a character at this point, and he's saying these words and feeling these things, and you're like, what am I doing?
Would you guys say that a silver lining in that is that because you're forced to do it in a month, you figured that out maybe more quickly than you would have otherwise?
That book is still a very passionate part of me, and it will be written one day, but I would have worked on it for months trying to figure out what was, I would have been convinced it was the plot or a character or something, and forcing it down onto the page so fast, I was able to very quickly see that it had a lot to do with point of view and the fact that it was in third person instead of first. Because romance doesn't need to be in third person, and I'm going to stand by that.
Definitely.
I agree. I think it's that, and it also, again, knowing what I know now, 5, 6 books later, you also see very quickly how much plot you have. And for a lot of people, that's not going to be a problem. I want everyone out there to know, if you're doing this for the first time and you're freaking out that you're not going to have enough plot, it might not be a problem for you. For a plotter like me, it's a problem if I don't have enough plot, because then I'm just sitting around twiddling my thumbs. And so that's one of the things I do pre-Nano now, is make sure I have it all plotted and know I have where I go, you know, where I'm going to go, my beats, my save the cat beat. And because that for me, because that's how I work, I know that November 15th, I'm not going to be freaking out like, what do they do now?
Because that's true. If you waited, like if you tried to begin November 1 plotting it all out, then that cuts into your writing time. So, I mean, that's a really good point to make if you're working on this, is that, like, you can have an outline before you start. I mean, I don't think there's any, like, super official rules, but, like, that's not against the rules, right? If you have an outline when you start.
No. I think that's an interesting, it goes back to our plotter versus pantser argument that we tackled a few months ago, is, are you a plotter or are you a pantser? Because if you're a plotter, you should probably do all your plotting before November 1st comes along. But Nano is very good for pantsers who like to write by the seat of their pants. Tracy Puckett. I'm a plotter. I knew before November 1st exactly what I was tackling, when I was going to tackle it, because it's just how I am and how I operate.
Yeah. So you've mentioned kind of, you know, going into it with a plot, but I would be interested, because we've talked some about what it was like the first time, like kind of what it made you decide, and what that process was like with that first time you did Nano. But how does it look different now? Because you're both, you know, several books in, you've got some writing experience under your belt. So how are you approaching it differently this year than maybe you did that very first time?
Alexis, you want to go?
Sure, I'll go first. I know what I'm doing, as opposed to I think the first time I did Nano, even though I had written a novel, I still felt like I was wandering around in the dark looking for the light switch to turn it on. It was very much a learning experience, whereas this year for Nano, I know what tenses I like to write, and I know what point of views that work for me. I know whether or not the story is going to work after 15,000 words. I'm familiar with what works for me, and so I was able to plot it out in advance. I knew what story I was going to be attempting, and whether or not it was realistic for 30 days and 50,000 words and all that jazz. So it's a much more controlled environment. It's much more planned. It feels much calmer in general this time around. Like, yeah, I didn't hit my word count today. No worries. No worries. I got it tomorrow. As opposed to last year, where it would have been like, oh my God, I didn't hit my word count. Paper bag. Lindsay, your turn.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think the biggest changes for me that I'm doing the tail end of a novel that I've already started. And I am confident enough to say, you know what, that's what needs to be written right now. I need to finish this novel instead of starting it. And I know the plot. I know some pieces that I have to go back in and fill up. And again, I know more about how much time it takes me to write 50,000 words and what that's going to look like. So the planning, even if I hadn't written it all out and planned it all out in Scrivener, I I would already, it's just in my head. It's a lot more intuitive now. But the first part of the novel is the more fun part. So, so anyone who don't do it like me, because I'm just finishing up all the loose ends and the crying and the black moments and all that.
That is an interesting difference too. Is a lot of the time when people do Nano the first time, it is a novel that they're writing for the very first time, as opposed to this year where you hear a lot of writers going, "Yeah, I need to finish this book, so I'll do 50,000 words."
Yeah, I definitely think it's an interesting point because I know when I first heard about NaNoWriMo, it was like a whole novel in a month, and I think I didn't really even conceptualize that what they really meant was 50,000 words, which is not necessarily a whole novel. It's the beginning or the end or a really rough skeleton that you're going to go back and flesh out.
Or a massive novella.
Or a massive novella, or two, maybe two.
Maybe two.
Two novellas. Yeah.
I think, didn't Julia say she was going to do 2 novellas for this? Yeah.
I think she did say that. Yeah. For me, it would be 1 novella because I write about that much and then go back and, well, not quite that much, but I write about 45,000 words and then go back and cut entire chapters out of it. So it would be about a whole novella that I would then chop back up if I was going to do that. So it's come up a couple times about kind of the time of year that this is going on, and I thought it was so interesting at the very beginning, Lindsay. You said that you actually have done better with Nano in December than the camp, which I guess, did you say that was summertime? Or
it was maybe spring or summer, I don't remember.
I feel like it's March for some reason.
I did too, because I thought it should be in the summer because it's camp, but it was in the summer, or the spring.
I feel like maybe there's one in the summer too. I don't know. We should have looked this up before we did the show.
Research.
We're mostly talking about November. Yeah. We're throwing all that in our books. We're not. But I will admit that my that's our answer for tonight. Anything that we don't have specifically, just Google it. Which sounds a lot like what I sometimes tell my students. But anyway. So one of my main reasons, and I really thought about coming into this, that I have no good reasons for not doing Nano that don't sound just like pathetic excuses, because I thought about maybe I'll talk about why I don't do Nano, but I don't really have a good reason. But one of my reasons that I'm sure a lot of people think of is November is such a busy month anyway with the Thanksgiving holiday. For me, it's a busy time at my day job, but again, those are just really kind of pathetic excuses. But how do you handle that? I mean, there's kind of the end of November can be a very busy time. So how do you handle the fact that Thanksgiving and NaNoWriMo happen in the same month?
I often ask, why did they do this? Because it's a little bit of a like, hello, there's a major holiday. My kids are out for an entire week. And I'm a mother, so that's a massive concern for me, the fact that there are 2 little boys vying for my attention and the family and all that lovely stuff. So it can be a huge time suck. For me, a lot of the time, though, it's actually a good thing because I don't have to worry about pickups and drop-offs, and there's time off, and other people around, and I can hide from people that I don't like. Like, shh, you go eat your turkey. I'm working on my novel.
I have this thing I'm doing. I have to do it. I have to win.
I think in their NaNoWriMo, maybe it's on their site, in their FAQ or something, they say something like that, like, why did we pick Nano or November? And I remember I used to be very dissatisfied with their answer. It said something like, well, if you can't write a novel in November, or yes, we know it's busy, but if you really want to be a writer, you can write in any month, or something like that. And I remember thinking like, well, that's stupid. That you're still inconvenient, and it's still a bad month. But now that again I'm writing more seriously, I can kind of see that point. If you do have deadlines at all sorts of different times of the year, and this is kind of an exercise in getting it done, no matter what's going on. That being said, I like to front load in the month. The first couple of weeks I try and get a little bit more extra in every day so that I can take a few days off here and there when things are going crazy. And like Alexa said, it gives you a good excuse to say, I need to take my laptop into my room and do stuff.
I have a deadline.
I have a deadline. I'm sorry. It's very important.
I definitely have had that thought, when I've thought about Nano and I thought, why is it November? I hadn't read that in their FAQs, but part of my thought process was, well, maybe their thought is if you can write a novel in November, you can write a novel any month. And so it's part of that whole, just proving to yourself that you can get it done kind of thing. But
well, this is not December, right? I mean,
right,
that would be
exactly.
horrible. But publishing shuts down in December anyway, so.
It is kind of fun that it's almost the end of the year, too. You have that, what have I done with my life this year? I'm about to see so-and-so and so-and-so, and I want to say that I'm accomplishing this goal. And so it does put that little bit of extra motivation on the top of everything.
Yeah, very true. And then going into the new year, if you're setting some goals for yourself, you've got that behind you, and you're like, I've written one book, why can't I'll just write another one or more in the next year. Yeah.
Or I'm going to edit that book that I just reviewed.
Right, exactly. I'm going to go back in and find those beautiful scenes that are going to surprise me because I was writing them so fast I didn't remember.
Yes.
Which is super fun. Super fun.
When did I write this?
I do that anyway, even without.
Y'all have those moments too, right? It's not just me.
No, I do have those moments.
Okay.
Yeah. I have
Y'all
them in
aren't just laughing and going, that's just her other personality writing. Okay.
No, I totally do that if even in something like a current project, but also if I go back and read something that I wrote like a year ago, I'm like, who was that? Where did that come from? Totally.
What genius was that?
Right. Those are the good ones.
I'm usually so mean to myself that I am like, oh, this did not suck. I thought for sure when I wrote Nano last year that it was all terrible, but this isn't awful.
And I guess that might be another sort of unintended side effect of you kind of write your book in November and then move into the busy holiday season in December. It probably naturally forces some time where you're not reading what you wrote, which can be a really powerful thing when you go back. You're seeing it with fresh eyes and less likely to think the whole thing sucks and needs to be thrown out the window. So, I mean, maybe there's some benefit to finishing something in November and then being really busy, you can't pick it up to look at it as quickly. Makes sense.
And keep the lighters away from me.
That's right. No setting things on fire.
I set manuscripts on fire. That's my answer to writing.
That sounds so good.
Cathartic.
So I think that's probably a good segue into talking about what is the hardest thing about getting the words done in the month. What are those dark moments of Nano?
It's really easy to beat yourself up. You didn't hit your word count, or it's a double-edged sword. You have writing buddies, and so let's just take for instance, both years Miss Tracy Puckett likes to post up some ridiculous word counts her first week, and I feel all adequate because I didn't write for the first 4 days. And so she's all like, I got 20,000 words down, this is awesome, and I'm like, I wrote 5 words this week. So it can be a double-edged sword because you do have writing buddies there. You can see how well or not well that they're doing, and you can compare yourself, which may or may not be a good thing. You can have, I didn't get to write this, we had the flu and the stomach virus, and then Thanksgiving happened, and I was doing so well, and then I fell massively behind on my word counts. How am I going to finish by the end of the month? It's good to have those moments, though, because that's life, and that's life as a writer, and you do have to push through that. So those are my dark moments.
How about you, Lindsay?
Probably the same thing. Just having your brain going in 2 different places, and I have been really swamped in my day job this week, and my husband's on a work trip, and I'm like, but I told these people I was doing Nano. I'm going to be on this thing on Google, and it's just why do we beat ourselves up? I know that I can do it. I can get it done, and it's not going to be a hard thing. But it's something about calling it winning. You win NaNoWriMo if you get it all done. That you get a little competitive, and it's kind of hard to live up to.
Are you calling me a loser?
No. I said I lost one time. I know how that feels.
At least you guys have played the game. Exactly. I'm not even on the field, so you should be totally proud of yourselves.
I'm sure you have your own personal NaNoWriMo, Mary Chris.
I do. I'm actually working on final edits, so it looks a little different. I don't think I will hit 50,000 words unless that's like cutting 50,000 words. Yeah, so does that count? That's like inverse NaNoWriMo. So if there's those dark moments, but what are the best moments? So what it really is kind of the most positive thing that we've talked about the community, but what are some of the other positive things that you get out of the experience?
That's an interesting question. I need a second to think. Lindsay, you go first.
Okay. If you love to write, there's just nothing better than giving yourself the permission to go for it and just getting that story out. And there's just a sheer joy in creating that is really fun. And when you get to whatever it is, 1667 words. So just to back up, so they say 50,000 words a month, and then they break it down and say you should, if you want to get to that, do 1667. Is that right? Words a day. Yeah. So it's the best part is getting to 1667 and realizing I'm going to keep going because I'm having so much fun, and I know where this is going, and I'm feeling it, and then even if you only get to 2,000 or 2,500 or 5,000 that day, or you feel the vibe, and that's the best part for me.
Side note, something I thought about while you were talking is other features on the website. It isn't just you have a word counter, and it shows you graphs and things on how many words per day you're averaging and where you're at in comparison to your goal on the graph. And there's more than it just being a website, which is why I recommend if you're even thinking about doing NaNoWriMo in the future to go to the website, sign up for an account, and create a profile, because there's a lot there besides community and just a page. It's cool stuff. Permission was also a really cool thought that you had there, because something, especially women, have trouble with a lot of the time is giving ourselves permission to do something for ourselves, to indulge in something creative that may not be profitable. And so it is nice to have something where it's like, I'm doing NaNoWriMo. I have goals. I'm part of a community, and it gives you that extra layer of permission. Oops, my ringer's on. To do that and to just do that. So that is probably one of the coolest things about NaNoWriMo, is that permission aspect that you may or may not be giving yourself otherwise.
I think I saw on Twitter, I haven't checked it myself because my word count has been down the last few days, but I think I saw that the word counter thingamajiggy was down on the website.
Yeah, it was,
a bunch of people were complaining about it, and I thought, again, I hadn't gone on and logged in, but I thought, that's horrible. I felt their pain, because there's nothing more fun than going and putting in your numbers and seeing them grow, and it's a really cool feedback tool that maybe we should all have.
Yes.
Right? All of us writers should have a thing every day where we can clock in and get on that. Get your husband or somebody to do
There you
it.
go.
You get that euphoria when you've done something good, that little piece of candy in your brain that says you're doing something and you're doing well at it. And it's a nice little boost every day.
Just a sec. Max, no.
We can still hear you.
I'm loving the dog edition. It's really nice. I think we have to have animals every month now.
I'll bring in Zap next time, and he can sit on my shoulder there.
Yes. Can you make sure he's wearing like a vegetable hat?
Yes.
Something? Yes.
I'll carve it just for you, Mary Chris.
Thank you. So we should explain Zap is a gerbil. Guinea pig. Sorry. Oh, sorry. It's wrong.
We have a guinea pig too.
He's my reading buddy.
Scarlet the guinea pig.
What is your Scarlet?
Scarlet the guinea pig, yes.
Nice. Wow.
So you can see this is Murphy and this is Max.
Aww.
Max was chewing on some wood that he wasn't supposed to be chewing on.
Oh yeah, we don't want that. Sure.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, we love the dog. We love the interruption. It's great. So I think kind of as we wrap up, what if someone is thinking about doing Nano or has sat down to do Nano for the first time this year? What advice, what words of inspiration or what advice would you give them?
Just do it, for one, to sound like Nike. But one question I get asked a lot is, do you need a special computer? Do you need a special program? Do you need special tools? No, you don't. You can use a legal pad. You can use Microsoft Works if that's what came preloaded on your computer. I actually wrote 2.5 novels in Works. There are workarounds for bringing it into Word. It's not the end of the world if you don't have a Word document or Scrivener, which a lot of us writers really enjoy using, especially if you like plotting and doing research and stuff like that. Just write. Mm-hmm. Put the words down on a napkin, on the back of whatever you have laying around. Just put the words down. Don't let other little obstacles and barriers get between you and this goal of actually writing a book. There are no rules here. It's telling a story, and I think that gets lost sometimes. This is about telling a story. It's not about having perfect grammar the first time through, having a perfect first draft the first time through. That's what revisions are for. That's what beta readers and critique partners are for, and all the things that you'll discover on the journey to writing. But you can't do any of that until you have a story down on the page. And so do that.
Yeah.
Ditto. I get when people find out that I'm writing books, I get that all the time. I've always wanted to write a book, but I've never, or I have this great story idea, and I've suggested Nano for the same reasons, because it just gets you to do it, and you realize that it's either for you or it's not for you, or you realize what you're going to need if you really want to go down the publishing path. And like we've talked about, we realize things about ourselves, about our writing process, about the kind of books we write, but you're never going to learn that if you don't just sit down and do it.
Even if it's just an hour a day, whether you wake up an hour earlier or you stay up an hour later, or instead of going and watching TV during your lunch break or whatever it is, you dedicate that to writing. It was an interesting transition for me. I gave up TV for a year. I watched like 2 shows still, but for the most part, I stopped watching television and used the time that I used to watch television as my writing time. You have to stop making excuses saying that you're too busy or you're a mom or you have a job or whatever it is. Most writers will tell you that they wrote that first novel while they had a full-time job and a sick spouse and 45 kids and the flu. They walked 5 miles in the snow kind of thing. You just have to carve out.
Robert's story that she started writing when she was like snowbound with 3 kids who were sick, and
yeah,
like, I got to do something,
Exactly. You just have to make the time and just put the words down, because there is no perfect time. There's no perfect time to marry. There's no perfect time to have kids. There's no perfect time to change your job, and there's no perfect time to write. Just write.
Yeah. And maybe that's some of the logic. Maybe that's, if we could give them something to put in their FAQs, maybe that's the logic. I mean, there is no right time to do it, so why not November? Yeah, and even though I'm not doing Nano, I completely agree with what you both just said. I mean, I did write my first novel while I was in graduate school and working full-time and walking up the hill on the snow. No, not all that, but yeah, and exactly, with a boulder on my back on a piece of paper that I then had to scan. But no, it is so true. Like, you just have to sit down and do it. And if this is a tool that can force you to do that, then I think it's a wonderful tool to use, definitely.
And I would just add, if I could, that there's no right time and there's no right words either. Because you got to turn off your editor and just let it go. And I've said that like 5 times, but I think it's just so important, because I've known a lot of people who get stuck, and they're trying to find whether they should say the word turquoise or azure, and did they amble or did they stroll? And that's not what Nano's about, and that's really, at the end of the day, maybe not what even writing's about. I mean, you'll get there to a point where you're trying to figure out the right color of blue to match the cerulean sea or something, but that's not what Nano's about. So just stop worrying about whether you're doing it right, and just Nike style.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm such a dork.
You're in the right place.
You are totally in the right place. This has been great. Is there anything else that you guys feel like is left to talk about Nano? Again, having never done it, I tried to come up with some questions that sort of I've always had, or things I would want to know about that I'm curious about. But anything that you all want to sort of add or feel like we need to cover that other people might want to know?
I would just say using it as a jumping off point too. Whether you win or lose, it's a very educational experience. It hopefully will connect you to a lot of other people, and hopefully open you up to questions like, am I writing in the right genre? What genre did I just write this story in? Which is often a very good newbie question. You write a story, is it sci-fi? Is it fantasy? Is it romance? Is it mystery? I don't know. So it's a jumping off point to learn about genre and lengths. What's the normal length for a story in that genre that you're writing? What tense is typical? What point of view is typical? From there, you can start to educate yourself about where you might be going down the road. And maybe that's taking writing classes. Maybe that's watching online courses on YouTube. And maybe that's buying a book at Barnes & Noble, going back to school. I don't know, but at least it's giving you somewhere to start seeking out where you need to go and grow as a writer.
Right, because you don't know that until you sit down and write. Like, you have no way to know. Like, you might be able to try to guess, like, I think I'm going to need help with this, but you have no idea until you sit down to do it.
I had no idea I knew proper grammar.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes I do.
Sometimes. Not really.
I would just add also, I mean, I mentioned it before, but if you still have questions about NaNoWriMo, you can Google it. Or, again, going to their site, it was such a huge, not just support, but resource. And like I said, I still go there sometimes just to kind of look around and see. There's adoptables. So if you don't know like what your character's name should be, you can go and say, someone give me a name, and then give me a profession, and then give me a subplot, and then, I mean, you can basically outsource your novel and then just fill in the blanks. It's like Mad Libs. But, don't let, again, we're saying don't let any of this stop you. I mean, they've got all this stuff set up for you just to go and take advantage of it.
Definitely. And we will, as much as we're joking about, just go Google it. We'll put on YouTube, when we put this up, we'll put the link to the NaNoWriMo site. And I think in everything we've done to sort of promote the chat, we've included the hashtag, but we'll make sure to continue to include that when we send out links to the YouTube video, so that you'll have all that right at your fingertips. But yeah, there's definitely, if you're interested in writing at all and follow any writers on any kind of social media, I'm sure you will find or have heard about National Novel Writing Month. It's everywhere in November.
Nate was at work today, and one of his coworkers said, "Has your wife heard of this National Novel Writing Month thing?" And he was, yeah.
It's like it's all we're talking about. Yeah. Well, that's kind of, I think, all we have to go over tonight. I want to go over and kind of go through and just have you all again promo anything you're working on, or websites or anything like that. And also I threw this on them at the beginning of the broadcast because it's something I like to think about all year. So no pressure, but we are in the month of November, which in addition to being National Novel Writing Month is also Thanksgiving. So I thought it would be nice if tonight, as we kind of went around and closed out, if we just talked about just one thing that we're thankful for. So sorry to put you guys on the spot, but I think we won't see our viewers again till December, so let's go ahead and do our little Thanksgiving celebration at the same time as National Novel Writing Month celebration. So who wants to go first in the wrap-up?
I can go first.
Okay, thank you.
We'll start with what I'm thankful for. To go with the Nano theme, I am incredibly thankful that I got pushed to start writing, because I know all of you people now because I started writing and I joined Twitter, and this community is amazing, and it all starts with just putting yourself out there. And so I'm really thankful that I put myself out there and that I now have all of you wonderful people in my life, and I hope anybody watching who's had a question about this kind of stuff does the same thing, because there's just awesome people out there, and all it takes is joining Twitter, joining Nano, and just putting yourself out there. Projects I have coming up. Bam, lots of stuff. Pay attention to my website, my newsletter. I have the follow-up to Tease, the serial called Stripped. It is coming out as soon as I publish it. It's just a matter of publishing it. And then after that, I have finally the third book in the Storm Inside series called When Lightning Strikes. So lots of stuff coming out over the next 2 months. So just go to my website, sign up for my newsletter, and enjoy.
Yay! All right, Lindsay.
Lexi stole mine, but
you can reiterate. She stole mine too. You can read her.
No, it's so true. I'm very thankful for the friendships I've made in the past year. And when I first got started writing early last year, my cousin is a writer, and so I have her, but she said, I don't know how I would survive if I didn't have writing friends. And slowly in this last year, I've made great friends and a support network, and through Twitter, through my RWA chapter, through hanging out on the street corner.
You gotta stop doing that.
Good friends, though. No, and people that I can go to now about writing things. You think this sounds crazy? To what is this? Craziness with Ebola. I mean, we can talk about everything, and it's a huge support, because writing can be so solitary, and you really need each other to do it. So I'm very thankful for that. I don't really have much to promo, but I'm always like 2 weeks away from promoting something. I will be doing a blog post in a few weeks for the Contemporary Romance Writers chapter of RWA about the end of Nano. So this will be kind of about the beginning, and then hopefully I'll have new stuff to talk about in a few weeks. So I'll post links for that on my Twitter and Facebook and all that. And sorry, my dog's about to tip my wine over. And so yeah, and then I think we might be doing a little blog hop coming up.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that too. I'm really excited about getting into the holiday spirit.
Thanks for playing along with my being thankful. Yeah, basically, I have the same thing to say as you all. I'm so grateful for writer friends locally, nationally. It's just, and I guess, I would add to that I'm really thankful for the technology that allows us to connect.
Yes.
Because, yeah, a lot of, which we're doing tonight, but, a lot of writer friends, including both of you, are not here in Virginia with me, and I certainly have some wonderful friends through my local writing group as well, but I just really appreciate how broad that network of other writers can be. So super grateful for that, and it's so nice to be able to talk to somebody about I'm stuck on this scene, and they know exactly what you mean, or Lindsay and I have talked about Save the Cat, and like most people wouldn't even know what we're talking about, and so it's nice to just be able to have those conversations without trying to explain, well, it's like this plotting thing, and and then their eyes start to glaze over.
Someone saves the cat. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. But by the time you get to my novel, it has nothing to do with a cat. So anyway, just super grateful for all of that. It's just been a huge part of my life, and really, I think, helps keep writing as a focus with everything else going on.
Word.
Yeah. As a promo, I do have a novella coming out. It's going to be available for pre-order at some point during the month of November. I'm shooting for mid-November. The best way to keep up with that is to visit my website, marychrisescobar.com, and sign up for my newsletter. The newsletter subscribers will absolutely be the first to know as soon as that goes up for pre-order. But the novella is a follow along with a couple from my novel, How to Be Alive. So I'm super excited to get that out. And so that'll definitely be out for pre-order in November and probably available early December for purchase. So excited about that. And I'm going to be working on another novel. Those characters have certainly gotten inside my head, so they're going to get a novel as well that I'll be working on early next year. And yeah, there's the blog hop coming up, and if you sign up for that newsletter and go to my website, I've got weekly blogs that you can follow along with as well. So anything else from you all, or you good?
I think we're good.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here, and thank you to, is it Max and Murphy for joining us?
Max and Murphy, yes.
Max and Murphy. And thank you all for watching, whether you're watching us live or you're going to catch us on the YouTube broadcast. So thanks for spending a little bit of time with us tonight talking about NaNoWriMo, and go forth and hit your word counts. Good night.